used to be tough to get picked up in that first pickup game. Guys would be like, you walk in, hey, you got 5? Yeah, we got 5. And then you see them over there trying to pick somebody else up. So I used to dunk when I walked in the gym just to try to get picked up. And then Cam's 4 years younger, so he always had trouble getting picked up. So I dunk,
and I can't jump.
You're like, oh, we got him, and I'd be like, yeah, well, you got to take my brother too. So that was how we got on the court for a while.
Do you guys remember Uncle Drew?
Yeah.
This is like you like show up to the park and no one picks you, and then you just kill everyone.
That's it.
Welcome to Young Man in the Three, presented as always by 342 Productions and our great friends at Wondering Media. We got a special episode today with the Spencer brothers, these crazy guys. We taped this a couple of weeks ago, pre-playoffs, pre-ejection, where we get into all their backstory, a lot of fun stuff. Before we get to that, Mr. Cam Johnson, we are taping this at 11:53 p.m. on Wednesday night. The Thunder are up 133-88 right now with 7 minutes left in the fourth. We got a lot of playoff action to talk to. Cam is in his beautiful old home in Scottsdale, Arizona. What's up, man?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. Living a good life.
All right. So we got a lot to hit. Knicks first. 2-0. Initial reactions.
Initial reactions going up 2-0 on the road is impressive. I think the question goes to Boston and what adjustments they can make and what is happening. I think the natural question to ask is their shooting has been down. Like they are a historically high volume, high percentage team this season. Last season, it's what they've been able to do. And they're just not hitting these first two games. So one question is, do you just stick with the script, play the way you've been playing all season, and it'll turn back around, or do you make adjustments? New York's ability to battle back from 20 is encouraging, but they cannot continue to find themselves down 20. It's not going to happen every time. 2 times in a row, you pretty much used up a lot of the, that good juju that you can find in a series. Like you're going to have to play really good ball to beat Boston 2 more times.
So some numbers: Celtics 45 missed threes in game 1. We didn't tape after game 1. Tonight, 14 straight missed shots. There's a lot of stuff to go through. Obviously 2 straight 20-point comebacks. When you talk about changing up strategy, do you think they have the personnel to do that? This is a championship personnel, and they've won a very specific way, Missoula ball. But do they have the personnel, especially with what we don't know what we're going to get from Porzingis, to walk into game 3 with a noticeably different strategy?
They have the personnel, I'd say, but I don't think they have the kind of experience with changing their style. Like they have been remarkably consistent in the way they've played for a while now. And they're some of the best at doing it. I just don't think they have that experience in whatever they would change to that you could kind of feel comfortable in predicting the outcome. So if I were in that situation, I would say keep playing the way you've always played, and it's going to turn.
I was looking at this in the fourth quarter tonight when Boston was up 84-68, 99% win probability. They had a version of this in game 1 as well. You're watching these at home. At what point are you seeing these as a reality that this is actually happening?
It's kind of like you see like a little bit of deflation in the Celtics in that point, where maybe a couple missed shots didn't go down, or they're stalling out, taking tough ones. And New York is getting out in transition. And it seems like, down 16 on the road in the fourth quarter or whatever that was, it's easy to kind of panic. And they didn't. They look like the aggressors. They look comfortable in those moments. A large part of that is Brunson's clutch ability. But Mikal, he didn't score until the fourth quarter, then rattles off, boom, 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 boom. You get maybe a down night from OG offensively, but Josh Hart picks up the slack and kind of is there to buffer early. Same with Cat. And then you have to give a lot of credit to them on the defensive end. They were straight up disruptive.
Yeah.
You take OG out for a little bit. You have Mitchell Robinson and Cat on the court, and they're moving their feet and they're making it hard. And so you got to give a lot of credit to the way they've been able to execute defensively. And that's really what's kept them in the game, is their ability to just sit down and guard and not let the games get too far out of hand.
I'm going to ask about Mitch in a second. But can we shout out Kale for a second? We're extremely biased. He's one of your closest friends in the world, probably, mine as well. He has gotten a lot of shit this year, which he's acknowledged in the press. He's been amazing, in this playoff run for them. This is just a guy, you've been in these battles with him. This is a guy that's won 2 national championships. He's won everywhere he's gone, and you're seeing this now. And I'm just kind of curious your perspective on it. With bias aside, having played with him and been in these wars with him, seeing that.
Yeah, Kel's a guy you want on your team in the playoffs. He makes winning plays. The stat sheets are one thing. You can say shooting numbers, scoring output, that's one thing, but there's a ton of little things on the court. Time of cuts, defensive rotations, impact on and off the ball defensively, running habits, just being in the right spots. And then also the ability to come back after, kind of not having the offensive game you want to have and hit big shots in the fourth and step up and take big ones. There's maybe 1 or 2 that he missed that he was still willing to step up and take in those moments. So like I said, man, just a guy that you want to have on your team. You can count on him 100% of the time to make winning plays. And then defensively, he's out there 40, 50 minutes last game. He's playing. He's out there. And he's sitting down and guarding. That's been his thing. That's what he's hung his hat on a lot of his career. And you've seen him come up with 2 big-time plays at the end of each game right now to seal him.
What do you think about the Hack-a-Mitch strategy?
I think it's smart. It's ugly. It looks ugly, but it's effective.
But do you think I thought it was a good adjustment the Knicks made tonight and Tibbs made tonight about basically letting them do that, getting him into the penalty and then just taking him out. I mean, Mitch played great. Mitch was awesome tonight, but just in general, it feels like if you're going to do that, you're kind of walking yourself into a trap, whether or not he hits the free throws or not, because you get to a 7 minute mark in the fourth quarter in the penalty.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say do it that late in the game, right? But it's a game of chess. That's what playoffs is. It's a game of chess. How can I make my advantages be as large as possible, and how can I find as many small advantages as possible? And in that one, it can go either way. But you look at it from a possession standpoint, and if he's shooting, if he's a 40% free throw shooter, that points per possession is low, man. And so the more possessions you can keep there, the better. But like you said, then you run into the issue of them getting to the bonus early, and then Brunson is kind of hunting them down. Cat is hunting these fouls down, and then Boston has to kind of change the way they play because they just don't have that buffer room.
Yeah.
So, like I said, bro, it's that chess game that makes the playoffs such great basketball, especially for those of us, and hopefully everybody who's watching that pays close attention.
Here's my question. On a macro level mentally. And I'm going to couch this by saying the guys in the Celtics are this is a championship team. This is a team that with 3 gold medalists. It's about as, I would say, mentally tough a group and as sort of experienced a group as you're going to get. So you're probably going to bet on anybody to, either come back or just kind of, weather the storm, so to speak. It's probably these guys. A couple of things. The Celtics were 46-1 with 16-point leads before the last 2 games. The first team in the play-by-play era to lose 2 games while leading by 20-plus points. If you are in a group like this where this is happening twice, it's one thing to have just a bad night where it's like this happens, but it happens twice at home. What is are you just blocking out the noise and being like, I can't wait till Saturday, like fuck everything, like we just need to get out there and play? Like what else? Like how else do you respond to this from a pure just morale standpoint?
Yeah, I think the key thing that you mentioned is the championship pedigree. They're battle tested. They're a veteran group. They're a connected group, and they've been doing this, all year and for multiple years now. So with that in mind, I say flush them. It's over. You can't change them. Dwelling on them is not going to change anything. The result is the result. They know that it's not even like they played a good game and lost. It's different when you play a good game like, oh, I don't know what to change. But yeah, you flush it, you move on, you get excited, you go to the Garden, a chance to even up the series. They did it on your home court. You know you're capable of winning the game. You've kind of had your way with them all season. Now you're in the hole. It's just going to be how you respond. And I would not try to take anything away from them in terms of morale.
Well, it's gonna be loud, obviously, on Saturday at MSG, but in a weird way, the Celtics are coming in with nothing to lose.
Right.
You know, this is how it's where the Knicks were Monday night. Like, this is how this goes.
I still think there's a lot of pressure on the Knicks. I don't think like two games is a lot of games to win, and a lot of guys have been in that situation where you're up 2-0, you feel good about it. And then all it takes is that, come out anytime a big run in the second quarter, get the game away from them. And then you're finding yourself having to come back again. You can't find yourself down 20 if you're the Knicks again. I don't think it's going to work.
I think so too. And I just think, being realistic, I mean, Celtics are 25 for 100 from three in the first two games. That's not going to continue.
Right.
Like, that's what I will say. On the flip side of this is the Knicks have not come close to playing an A game yet. I'm fully expecting we're going to get a 40 ball from Cat at some point, just because he does it, he does it once a series at least. And so I think what's scary for Boston is it's not like they've come in and played perfect and beat you. They really played like shit in the first two halves, really first three quarters of the night, and so when somebody comes in on the road and steals one like that, that's what's scary, because you just know there's going to be a reversion to a mean at some point, in their favor.
On both sides. I think both sides are oddly in a similar position.
With Jalen in particular, we've talked about him a lot. But the degree of difficulty on some of these shots, even going back to Game 6, but in Detroit, but when you have defenders like these guys have, and what they're sort of showing and flashing at him with the doubles and everything like that, and the traps and everything like that, and his ability basically from a footwork standpoint to brush everything off. I don't think he's surprising you at this point. No. You've seen it. You've been his teammate at USA, seeing it up close, and you've seen it playing against him. But still, just like watching it, your thoughts kind of seeing it in real time, especially on a stage like this. This is the clutch player of the year. This is a guy that's done this in the fourth quarter all season. But still, this feels like a different level. Yeah,
he's just, especially in these fourth quarters, man, he's just rolling to a point where Boston's a very good defensive team, but it just seems like even if his shooting numbers aren't the best, he seems like he's manipulating the game. He's in control. You know what I mean? It's hard to get him sped up. He's getting to his spots to a degree where he's kind of controlling his own controllables. You know what I mean? And it's yielding positive fruit for the Knicks in this, especially in these late game scenarios where when they have guys that step up and keep them in position, he's always able to kind of take it home and close it for them.
Yeah. It's amazing he's able to just, I think about Game 1 with those 2 threes down the stretch where they knew exactly what he was going to do, and he's still able to get to it.
It's just calm. Like, it's calm, it's poised, it's an uncanny ability to do those things.
Yep. The other game tonight, OKC Denver.
Yeah.
Right now it's 141-94, so we're looking at a 1-1 series heading back to Denver. Your thoughts, I guess, on the first 2 games of the series, and how this matchup is shaping out?
If I'm Denver, whether it's 150-90 or it's 110-109, and a loss is a loss.
Yeah.
You were able to go to OKC and steal one. Then you go back home, back to the altitude in the playoffs, where you have championship pedigree on your team. You can't be upset about it. Now, on the flip side, if you're Oklahoma City, you righted the wrongs of the first game. It got away from you. It'd be nice to be up 2-0, but you feel like you found your footing a bit. So it's going to be, it's exciting to watch. I know this game, OKC kind of had their way, but I anticipate, not many more of those games happen.
How do you feel like Thunder are defending the 2-man so far?
Very well, but it's what they do. Like, they're very good at shrinking the court. They're very good at being in gaps. They're very good at just slowing you down, putting bodies on you. And it's it's really cool to watch from just a pure execution standpoint of like, it's almost, you watch closely enough, you can kind of just see exactly what Dagnall's trying to put in behind the scenes in practice, stuff like that.
This is not unique to this series, but I feel like tonight we saw a version of this, and this has been one of OKC's strengths all year. But as the series goes on, the depth factor, Wallace was big tonight. Caruso was great in game one. Other Jalen Williams was great tonight. The Nuggets have sort of acknowledged this themselves. Like, depth has not been their strength for as many great players as they have. They just have a lot of younger guys who haven't necessarily been there before. And this Thunder team, they just come in waves, and they basically have too many good players at a certain point where they almost have guys who they don't have minutes for. Do you view that as potentially both teams have superstars? Both teams have an argument for the MVP. Both teams, if you want to compare the top 3 or 4, you can make an argument either way. But does the depth feel like it could be a deciding factor if we look at a series that's going to go, 6 or 7, in terms of just like where we find the differentiator with these two?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to show a difference, especially as the series wears on. You can see it tonight, especially when it gets emotional and everything kind of goes up in a whirlwind. You need your team to, however it shakes out, when the parts come together, it's greater than if they were individual parts. And I think that's where the Nuggets are struggling a little bit, is that they have talent, they have good players across the roster, but they're struggling for that from that cohesion standpoint, where these lineups there's too many gaps in the game where it just gets away from them, and Oklahoma City constantly has guys that they can just throw in the lineup and their system remains, their ball movement remains, their effectiveness remains. So that's definitely a distinct OKC lineup, but definitely a distinct OKC advantage. But playoffs can also be unpredictable.
I wonder, and all the credit in the world to these guys for beating a Clippers team in the first round, already getting to this point where you're winning a game on the road in Oklahoma. But I also wonder, it's like, there's a new coach. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a new coach 10 days before the playoffs start. There's a lot of variables, to your point, that are at play that are like in-house, that are not existing in other situations. And, teams have injuries and things like that. They've probably been more fortunate than some others in that regard, but that's a factor, And
I mean, it's not even like, for most of the game, it's not even like you just wonder where they're going to make up. You just wonder where that 40-point cushion that they gave up today, like, how are they going to get those points back? Where are they going to take them away from OKC? It looks like it's going to be tough for them. Definitely.
Indy last night, we talked right after it happened, kind of needed some time to process it. What is there to say? I think at this point, we are now, we were together last week, Pittsburgh, when the first one of these happened. Week later, happens again. Just what the initial thoughts on this, on them being able to do this twice in the span of 7 days?
It's similar to the Knicks. You can chalk it up to kind of getting lucky or whatever it is, but there's such a composure element to it where, Indy, they didn't do anything panicky. You're down 7 with a minute left, and they held their composure, worked to get shots that they wanted, executed, and defended, and so you got to give them credit for that. It really sucks for Cleveland, man. You hope they can get as healthy as they can, as quick as they can, but it's going to be tough for them if they don't have their guys, I mean, Mobley and Garland are a huge piece of what they do.
Yeah.
And among others. And man, if you're Indy, you got to feel good. Stealing 2 in Cleveland, been playing well at home. You got to feel good.
It also sucks for Cleveland because Donovan just, 48. That was an all-time playoff performance, which is going to get overshadowed because it's a loss.
I mean,
even when you watch it back, he was incredible all game. Strus was incredible all game. When Strus hit the 3 with a minute left, I thought, like, that's where I was kind of like,
it's another 99%er for you.
Yeah, it's just like, this is and
you're thinking like, not again. They're not going to do it again. Because like you said, we were together last time they did that, and we're like, no way, no way. So we're sitting there thinking the same thing. No way they're doing it again.
Well, that's what's kind of crazy about both of them. The composure thing is such a good point. Is, you know, when you look at this one yesterday, you got the putback dunk, you got the offensive foul, probably should have been a flagrant right afterwards. You have the Nembhard steal, so another inbound steal. But these are all just these are all just like them making plays in the last minute.
Yeah.
You know, I guess besides the offensive foul, I guess, but everything else is like them making plays.
It's still getting to a spot. It's still, you know, being disciplined and understanding what you're trying to accomplish from a pressure standpoint to put them in a situation that's uncomfortable. And then Cleveland, you know, it looked tough on them at the end of the game. They looked scattered. Like you haven't seen that team kind of show that lack of composure all season.
I talked to Ty tonight. I think he said this after the game last time, but if he didn't, he basically was like, I wasn't trying to miss the free throw on purpose. He made a play. My question is, you watching it back from your vantage point, what you saw on that overall, and just about sort of like even we were talking about with Jalen too, like his ability with a banged up wrist to make a play like that in that moment, and what it kind of says about him.
He just lives for those moments, man. You know him, I know him. He lives for those moments, you know, especially after being, you know, charted down as most overrated. I think he's just having a good time and enjoying the moment, making the most of it. I bet, man, he's just clear-headed when he got that offensive rebound, not worried about the free throw he just missed. Just understand that he had a chance to make something real special happen, and he did, just taking advantage of the moment. He's been doing it for a while now. But, yeah, it's good to see. First of all, it's good to see that level of competitive endings in the playoffs. I mean, it was one of the craziest playoff finishes we've seen in a long time. And, you know, I give a lot of credit to Ty for being able to step up and, you know, this whole entire playoff so far.
His whole playoffs have been nuts. I feel like the overrated thing was the greatest gift for him. This was just
the type of guy that would respond to that too. You know, he's the type of guy that would not let it bring him down, but kind of raise his level a little bit.
And it was dropped at a time where he was playing great. I mean, they've been one of the best teams in the league since January 1st. And so it felt a little random, kind of, that it would come out like this. But that was like, it's like if you need a chip on your shoulder to pop out, like I feel like it was like a gift that was just kind of like propped onto him.
Yeah, and he's making the most of it for sure.
What do you think, besides the obvious, get healthy, you know, I think, which is the most important thing with Cleveland, is there anything strategically that you'd want to see in game 3? Because, you know, even game 1, they played well. Pacers were just better. So it wasn't like this wasn't a Boston situation where it's like you're shooting 20% from 3. Like, they've played pretty well in both games. Health aside, the Pacers just been better. So is there something that they can do almost to really to slow? I wouldn't even say slow down Indy, because it wasn't like Indy. What's weird about these games is they just come on in the last 2 minutes.
Stealing them. It's stealing games is what it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if you're Kenny, and there's an assumption, hopefully, that they're more healthy. You know, at the very least, they can go, even if they're not 100%. But is there anything strategy-wise that you would sort of want to see?
No, bro. Honestly, I just, if I'm Cleveland, I'm just praying for health.
Yeah.
Praying for health. Because they're a different team with their full team.
Yeah.
And I've seen them across the season with different lineups. When they got their full lineup out there, they get rolling. You know, it's a unique combination of 2 smaller, quicker, electric scoring guards and 2 like bigs, 2 almost traditional bigs, rim protectors. You know, you go in there, there's a lot of people in that paint. Then you add in wings like DeAndre. It's like you have length, you have shooting, you have playmaking. With their whole roster, they're a tough team. You know, when they're down a couple guys, just like any team, now, these are important guys to them. So I'm sticking with praying for health.
Speaking of health, our last series, Warriors Minnesota, our hope is that Steph doesn't miss too much time. What do you think the Warriors can do to withstand this if he's going to be out for a couple games? They were great last night. Minnesota, you know, could not hit a shot. That's going to change. They're going to shoot better. So what do you see in this series, knowing that he's not going to be there for at least probably the next couple, that would give them some hope to at least stay afloat till he can come back?
Playoff Jimmy. He's going to have to take. I mean, he's shown that he's capable of taking that next step, and that, has done so much for the teams he's been on in the playoffs. I think he has that other step. It's going to be tiring and taxing on him, like it usually is, but he's going to have to take it. They have great accessory pieces around him, but nobody that's going to go out and win you the game, really. Buddy can get hot. We've seen that. Draymond is going to make plays, play defense, connect. Peyton's going to defend. Podziemski's going to do a lot of little things, add in a touch of scoring, but none of those guys, you're going to just say, go win us the ball game. So the ball's going to be in Jimmy's hands, and he's going to have to run it. He's going to have to distribute, find the right guys, keep the flow going, score when he needs to, which is probably going to be now a lot more than he was before.
Do you think Buddy's one of the great, shooters since he's come into the league, but I feel like his relocation has been particularly good on this team, where people have been comparing him a little bit to Clay, but it feels like it's better than it's been in other situations. And I'm wondering how much of that is him and how much of that is the team. Are
you comparing it to Buddy in other situations, or Buddy now versus Buddy
and
earlier?
Like Buddy could always shoot the fuck out of the ball. So it's not like he's like learned how to shoot. It's more just like he's putting himself in position.
And he shot 37 on the season. So it wasn't his best shooting season, right? He's been a 40 guy. He's been a high percentage guy on attempts. But what he's been able to do, like the Warriors system is great for a player like that, a player that can move around, make shots on the move, has that kind of shooter's instinct. So that he's always a weapon. He's always a weapon for them, whether he's hitting or not. Like, you can't just relax, because you put him in that offense, and it's kind of made for guys like him.
Yeah,
and so the him getting off in Game 7 and Game 1, it doesn't surprise me. It's kind of due.
My last thing on this, the Wolves were great in the Lakers series with them when they were trying to go small for a bunch of reasons. Draymond's a different beast. This is the thing the Warriors are, a lot more used to, I would say. So what is their adjustment? They're going to need to shoot better, obviously. But that is what is their adjustment to, I guess, Draymond, and also just the way this team is going to want to play and want to beat them with their personnel?
Well, you're playing two distinctly different defensive teams in Los Angeles and Golden State. And Golden State has been defending at a high level for a while now. And they kind of ratcheted up a notch in Game 1 there. I mean, to go down Steph Curry early and to continue to put forward, they won it defensively. They won Game 1 defense on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And it's not even like they have a roster full of superstar defenders, but they're just defending at a high level, and they're doing it kind of across the board. Whereas Los Angeles was definitely more of a couple point of attack defenders, making life toughest on Ant and Julius. And so I think that kind of curveball was a little bit different for Minnesota's offense to handle. So I don't know what the adjustment is, honestly. But it's definitely to dig into the tape and to kind of find where those slow parts have been, and definitely to get Ant going early this time.
And I think, sort of close what you were saying before about how exciting the playoffs have been. I think our one takeaway from the last week is that no home team is safe, and expect the unexpected, because that's all we've gotten, basically. Exactly. And so last night in a weird way shouldn't have been surprising at all. And I think it's, I would hate for us to have to make predictions, because I really don't know what the fuck is going to happen in any of these series.
Exactly.
Cam Johnson, as always, it's been a pleasure. We will see you next week.
Yes, sir.
We have Mr. Pat Spencer, Mr. Cam Spencer in the building. What's up, fellas?
What's happening? Thanks for
appreciate you having us.
Thank you guys for doing this. We were talking before, we don't do too many of these YM3 EPs remote these days, but with your guys' crazy last year or two, I feel like getting you in the same place is not always easy. And so we just had to sort of take advantage of this while we could. Pat, I mean, we're going to go back and forth with the two of you guys, and I want to get into a lot of your guys, the backstory, because the backstory is both of you have sort of like uniquely fascinating journeys and paths to where you are now. But Pat, I kind of wanted to start with you. I have a feeling that our audience has some semblance of your background. But can you start freshman year when you're when you're playing lacrosse and you're playing basketball at Latin School in Baltimore? Just your thought process then about you and your athletic journey going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I've told this a handful of times, but I think if you've watched Cam and I play and compete, you can tell that we're both just ultra competitive guys, and so that same competitive fire was in me even as a freshman in high school. But I just happened to be 5'4" and 120 pounds, and so at the time, folks are probably aware I played lacrosse. At the time, lacrosse recruiting was very, very early. So you could commit to a college in 8th and 9th grade. So the pressure was on me to figure out if I was going to play AAU or if I was going to take the lacrosse route. And so I had to pick between one of the two. And like I said, at 5'4", 120 pounds, and still being ultra competitive, I felt like I had a better chance. And lacrosse is probably the more viable option to play in college at a high level at that height. So our old man grew quite later. So we both had later growth spurts, but just wanted to give myself a chance to compete at a really high level at the collegiate level. And so I had to take the lacrosse route over hoops. And then obviously put basketball on the back burner to get to where I'm at today.
So
we can jump into that too.
You were cut your sophomore year from the lacrosse team?
I was cut from every team. My original freshman year, I was cut from JV. I played it's called fresh soft, literally freshmen and sophomores that don't make JV. And I realized I needed the extra year, so I decided to transfer to Boys Latin up in Baltimore, like you mentioned, and had to sit out a whole year, and then actually played JV my sophomore year there too. So technically, on paper, would have been a junior, and got cut from the varsity team as a sophomore for that. Cut from varsity in hoops as well. So yeah, I've been cut from just about every team. Cut from all the club teams that I tried out for. It's been quite a journey.
So Cam, you're 4 years younger, and when this is happening, when he's cut from the team, when he's on the JV team as a sophomore. Now that some time has passed and there's been a lot of success, what are you like? Obviously, it's your brother, it's your family. You're going to be supportive regardless. Are you seeing like a college athlete, much less a pro athlete at that point? Like, did you always see this coming?
Yeah, I think it was just a long-term thing. Like you said, he didn't grow until later, but he always had the skill that was needed to play, whether it was on the lacrosse field or on the basketball court. So I think it was just a matter of time before he really hit that growth spurt. And then, I think it's really an advantage at that point because you've developed all of the skills that you need as a smaller guy, that once you grow, you're kind of ahead of everybody else at that point. So, I always believed in him. I was probably a little biased being his younger brother, but I just knew Pat had the competitive fire that once he hit that growth spurt, he was going to take off and do very well.
So Pat, at when you hit that jump, when you hit the growth spurt, are you still hooping? Like, what is your basketball looking like as lacrosse is taking off?
Yeah, it was tough. That was the toughest part for me. I realized that I could have played hoops at a really high level senior year of high school, and I had a buddy who was getting recruited to go play at Stanford, and a bunch of colleges were coming in to check him out. The hardest part for me was telling all the schools that were coming to look at him, I'm already signed for lacrosse and committed to that journey. I feel like I owe it to Loyola to see it through. Believe it or not, I was under recruited in lacrosse. I only had 2 offers come out of high school for that. So I felt like I owed it to the guys that took a chance on me and gave me an opportunity. So, while I had the itch and I felt like, damn, I'm going to really miss playing hoops, I owe it to those guys. So I put it on the back burner, but I did have to turn down a handful of opportunities on the basketball side just because, my buddy was getting recruited.
How much of a crossover did you see between the sort of your footwork that was required for lax and the transition to basketball?
Yeah, very similar, dude. People just aren't very aware of lacrosse. Yet it's still very small. but the spacing, a lot of the tactics that you use, whether it's pick and rolls, on the ball, off the ball, defensively, very similar, right? Like, one of our main principles in lacrosse was no rollbacks. You don't want to give up the middle of the field. Very similar principles in basketball, right? Most teams are keeping the ball down the side. Memphis might be a little bit different, but you keep the ball down the side. You don't want to get the guys to the middle of the field. Spacing principles are very similar. I played for your old buddy, JJ Redick's good friend, Chris Collins at Northwestern. And when he was at Duke, they'd actually pop over to a handful of lacrosse practices and check out some of the plays. Obviously, lacrosse, you can go behind the goal. So they would steal some of the out-of-bounds plays from some of the lacrosse plays. And spacing, very similar. Tactics are very similar. Like I said, just people aren't as aware of lacrosse yet.
It is kind of interesting. I'm kind of amazed. People talk all the time about the sort of the football to basketball pipeline and vice versa. And there's been guys in other sports, who've done this. Like I think about like Pat Connaughton in baseball, sort of has a similar just sort of like journey of being an incredible athlete who's able to do this in multiple sports. But when you describe lacrosse, it reminds me a little bit of like what Steve Nash says about, soccer and how that just like, it's like that the fundamentals of growing up playing soccer basically made him who he was as a basketball player.
Yeah, I agree. And I had a chat with someone today about it. Unfortunately, parents and kids are getting forced to play one sport like year round now. I think it's horrible for their development athletically, from an IQ standpoint, from all the above. So, yeah, it's tough. I don't know how you manage that. Cam and I joke, like if you're not the best player on like your travel team, and they tell you have to be there year round, and you kind of have to be there. So the kids that can get away with playing multiple sports on multiple teams kind of tend to be the kids that either their parents coach, which we were very fortunate. Our dad coached us growing up, at a younger age. We could play on 4, 5, 6 teams at a time, whether that's between travel, rec, multiple sports, you name it. So, yeah, the crossover between soccer is there, I'm sure, football as well. And we played everything growing up.
Cam, how about you when you were coming up? Was there anything else? You obviously, were hooping from a super young age. Was there anything else you were interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I played lacrosse all the way through high school as well. I wasn't as good as Pat, but definitely I loved the sport. I played. There were a couple years where I took off to play golf. I got the golf itch for a little while, and then played in high school for all three years after that.
Are you back with golf?
Oh yeah, we love golf. That's our summertime. I don't touch the sticks during the year, but during the summer we get after it.
Interesting. And maybe that's just because you're still figuring out the league. I feel like that would be JJ. JJ would use the show to find golf buddies.
We had the golf pitch in the summer. I mean, that's how we grew up. It was, going to play pickup. If we had just maybe a summer lacrosse tournament, and then we were playing golf every day as well. So that was kind of our thing, and we stuck with it.
So I guess, and Pat, you were hinting at this, but for both of you guys ending up at Loyola originally, how much is just like this is how far is it from where you guys grew up?
An hour, give or take.
Yeah, so it's like this is basically your backyard, So how much of that versus just, did they show the most interest? Like, what was the process for both of you guys sort of separately getting there?
Yeah, Cam can share his. Like I said, I was ultra competitive, and they had a national championship under their belt in 2012. And no disrespect to the other team that was recruiting me, but they just weren't anywhere near that caliber. So it was pretty much a no-brainer for me. I only had a couple options, and I just wanted to compete at a really high level. So Loyola was a no-brainer for me, and fortunately, but unfortunately, the same for Cam. He can kind of tell you.
Yeah. No, Loyola was my only offer coming out of high school. So it actually ended up being a great fit. It was somewhere that I would have looked anyway, had, a couple more offers come, but, being close to home, obviously having Pat who had been there, felt like we spent 4 great years there and got to know the coaching staff and just kind of what Loyola was all about. So super appreciative of the opportunity to go play there.
Cam, I love there's nothing it feels like it happens a weird amount on the show. We had Alex Crusoe in here a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about his own journey. It was very similar. It's always amazing when you got NBA players who had one college offer. You know, just is like, it's one thing if you don't, it's one thing if you're like, it's not, you know, Duke or Carolina or whatever it is, but just one college offer means that someone in the state of Maryland fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you talk to guys around the league. I mean, you can find a good amount of, you know, guys who maybe only had one or two offers or, you know, maybe that's all they had. And then come senior year, they got a lot more. But yeah, I feel like there are definitely some overlooked guys, even in the NBA.
Your boy Dez is like that. We joke about it because he's a max contract. He's a $280 whatever $1 million contract, and he couldn't get one college to give him a scholarship when he was in high school.
It's crazy to think about that, like how somebody can become a max contract player, and like, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, like he was trying to get a Division I offer, or, you know, try to go play at a higher major school.
Yeah. So Pat, you're in school. You're a 4-time All-American. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of the Tewantin. How do you pronounce it?
Tewantin.
Yeah. So just for anyone watching, listening who doesn't know, this is basically like the Heisman. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pat. But it's like the Heisman of college lacrosse. So you win that. This is like you're just stacking awards at this point. Is basketball in your brain at all when you're doing this?
Yeah, dude. I had the itch right away. I had it my senior year of high school, but like I said, I was committed to those guys. So I was going to see it through, get to college, freshman year, have a really good year, and make the Final Four. And during that whole time, I'm still calling my high school coach and saying, hey, dude, like, I might pull the trigger after this year. I just miss it too much. I want to take a run at it and get to the NBA. So decided that after, you know, a Final Four run and a good year, you know, with the team and a lot of good buddies, I felt like it would be too weird to leave. And I felt like I owed it to those guys to kind of see it through. So ultimately did some research, found out, you know, another Duke guy, Greg Paulus, had played 4 years of hoops and then went on to play 5th year of football at Syracuse. So knew the option was there to do the 5th year and decided I was just going to see lacrosse all the way through and then chase that dream after I got done. So, yeah, I had the itch. Believe me, I didn't touch a lacrosse stick in the off season. The whole year, all I did was play basketball. So fortunate to be from the DMV area where a lot of pros come back and kept my hand in it and stayed ready.
So I was going to ask you that. So you end up at Northwestern, and the process of getting there, but then just even, I guess you kind of answered the question a little bit just now, but like the rust level, whether you're into it or not, you know, when you're not doing something at a Big Ten level for 4 years, and then all of a sudden you're thrown into it, feels like there has to be some level of just kind of like, you know, getting your bearings underneath you.
Yeah, it was an adjustment for sure. But I knew that, man. I'm so thankful to Chris and the whole staff over there for giving me an opportunity to come in. And it was a learning year for me. And, you know, I think it was a learning year for the whole program. We were really young. I think we had one other senior, one junior. And we just didn't have a whole lot of talent, but we were young, and they allowed me to come in there and be myself competitively, work on a lot of things I need to work on, change my body. Mechanically had a handful of things wrong with my shot, but just an incredible year in terms of like the learning and what I needed to get to. So, you know, COVID sucked, and obviously we don't want that to happen again ever, but that 6 months after the season was pivotal for me. So to be able to get in the gym, transform my body, and get my game to where I wanted to get it to, obviously still improving to this day, but was a really pivotal time for me to get in there and really make some gains after figuring out what I needed to work on throughout that Big Ten year.
So COVID came, I was reading about this earlier, but COVID came after Northwestern. It was in the gap in between.
So we were actually like the last game or the second to last game played before they called it. We were in I forget, maybe like Wisconsin.
Indiana?
Yeah. Indiana maybe. And we got back to the hotel, and that's when COVID was kind of going, and Rudy was touching the mic, and we had no idea what was going on.
Weird times.
Yeah, right.
So you were at that point, are you, when you had those 6 months, are you sort of locked on going to Europe? Like, what's your thought process about next steps?
No, man, my journey's a little bit different all around. Now I had a deal over here. I won't throw any names or anybody under the bus. I had a deal over here to get after in the G League. And that COVID year was just so wild. They ended up bubbling the G League, but there were a handful of teams that did not want to send teams to the bubble. They didn't feel like it was worth it for the G League. So they were able to handpick their two-way guys and put them on other teams. Obviously, live and learn. I had nothing in writing. So I had an agreement with the team for 6 months right after college. They said, we want you to come be a part of our G League team. Didn't get anything in writing, just had continued communication with them. And about 2 to 3 weeks before the G League was going to bubble, they called and said, hey, our hands are tied. The NBA is forcing us to take the two-way guys from other teams. So ended up having to reroute my journey to Europe because I just felt like I couldn't have a blank year on the resume. I had, 1 year of college hoops and a ton to work on. And I just didn't feel like having a blank year on the resume was the right thing to do. So redirected, got to Europe. And I can continue the story if you like.
Yeah, well, we'll get to some of your journey, Cam, in a second because there's a lot to get to. But what I'm always curious about with stuff like this is how you keep you're a confident guy. Like I feel like you're going to have your confidence up, but when you're persevering and forgetting even the fact there's like a pandemic and all this shit going on, you're persevering in the fact that like this is you were dominating at one thing, you go do another thing, you have some success in it, but you're like thrown off your bearings a little bit. Like the drive basically to just be like, oh, I'm going to see this thing through rather than just be like, oh, I accomplished, I did an amazing thing. I was able to play high level D1 in another sport after dominating a separate one for 4 years. Like where the push came from, just basically, it was just like, you just were like, this journey is not done.
Yeah, it's just a belief in yourself and myself and the work. Just too competitive to not give it a go. And it's just, I'm a believer, if you have a passion for something, you got to pursue it. So, I played a bunch of NBA guys during that run, and I knew I had what it took to get to this level. But like I said, I've been cut from everywhere, so I don't get discouraged by setbacks.
Just keep rolling.
You just got to find the journey. Yeah, roll with the punches. And I'm fortunate. We have an incredible family and great support system. So, I don't think I give that enough credit when I talk about it. But just to have, obviously Cam, Will, my brothers, but just incredible parents and grandparents, the whole family. So, yeah, it's easy, obviously, to pursue your goals when you have people behind you like that.
So Cam, you get to Loyola. What's the process between Loyola, Rutgers, and then obviously UConn? What are your sort of, takeaways from like all those different experiences?
Yeah. The goal for me was always the NBA, no matter where I ended up. I've always felt like I've had that chip on my shoulder that, nobody wanted me at a point in time. I was super thankful for the opportunity at Loyola. I spent 3 years there. Just try to get better as a player and become a good, Division I basketball player at the time, continue to get better year by year. And, I think for me, it would be tough to make it to the NBA coming from the Patriot League. I felt like I'd have to go show that I could play against better competition and be on a bigger stage. And so that was, when the year that I decided to transfer up a little bit. And, Pat had told me great things about, the Big Ten and how competitive it was on a night-to-night basis. So super appreciative of the opportunity that Rutgers gave me to go play there for the year. Very blue-collar program, great culture there, and felt like it was a good fit for me. We had a solid year there. Unfortunately, didn't make the tournament. We were, one of those last ones that didn't get in. But, from there, I thought I had a decent year, but, I still felt that there was a step that I had to show on a bigger stage that I could compete on to get to the NBA. And that's when I ended up, finding UConn, which, was just a match made in heaven. We, once we got on campus and met Coach Hurley, we couldn't have been more alike. We just had that same fire, that same intensity and love for winning in basketball. And, I go to war for him any day of the week, but that was kind of my journey. And, yeah, it worked out in the end.
Can you speak to this fire, having lived it with him, just what your experience is, and just sort of like, why this comes out of him the way it does?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's not a college coach that put more into his team and helping his players, both on and off the court. I mean, the intensity level that he brought every day in practice, was even worse than what you see on the sidelines and in the game. So I think you see that in how his players play for him, how his coaches coach for him. Like he truly does give everything he has to that program. And, sometimes people might not like how he acts on the sideline, but I know for me playing for him, like I said, I'd have his back any day of the week. And, he's the best coach there is. So
so just thinking back on that team, the championship team, 4 pros aside, obviously that's a big aside, but the level of like sustained dominance you guys had, I don't think you won any game by less than 14 points the whole way through in the tournament, to the point where it was kind of boring. It was a little bit just like you're watching this at home and you're like, yeah, they're up, 80 to 62 every game. Like there was not. Did you know right away that this was going to be a team that was like this?
Yeah, I mean, we got there in June, and we knew that we had the talent for sure, but I thought our work ethic kind of matched the talent that we had. We didn't cheat the preparation ever. That's why I think when it came down to the tournament time and big games, as Coach Hurley would say, it was just kind of automatic. Like we practiced so hard. Cliche, but the practices were definitely harder than the game. So the game kind of slowed down at that level. And, I think the coolest thing about that team was just how unselfish everybody was. There were no egos. Some nights it might be your night to score 15 to 20 points. Some nights you might only get 2 or 3 shots. So, it was always about the team first. And, it's pretty rare to get that in sports. So it's definitely something that I always look back on that team and try to take with me.
Are there specific lessons from that? I want to get to, we'll get to both your sort of pro experiences in a second, but lessons as you've had to acclimate to the NBA, which is its own, level of everything, the lessons that sort of organization brought. You mentioned like that maybe, a Patriot League team is not able to bring.
Yeah, I would say just the championship standards that we had there. We treated every practice and every shoot around, every film session, like we were going to, try to win a championship. So I think that just the level of preparation and the routine that we had is something that I definitely try to take with me in the NBA, which is, it's a different thing. Obviously, can be in and out of the rotation at time, up and down with the G League. So I think just controlling what you can and always relying on that work ethic and preparation mindset will definitely be something I take with me.
Pat, so when you end up on the 2-way February 24th you came from Hamburg to the Warriors, or was there a stop in between?
No, I ended up stopping in DC in the G League for a year.
Oh, Go-Go's?
Yeah, with the Go-Go, yeah.
What is your acclimation like? Because it's obviously, it's a little bit different in terms of, kind of making your way back after this sort of stop and start.
Yeah. Well, they had seen me in summer league, so I played with the Go-Go for a year. Didn't get a ton of time there, but learned a lot about how the league operates. And then got the call to come to summer league with the Wizards, which was great. Got a few DNPs and wasn't too pumped about it, but ended up finally getting a chance to play in like the last couple summer league games, and one of them happened to be the Warriors. We played the Pacers and the Warriors, and had a great game against the Warriors, and got the call the next day to come into training camp and get after it. So been here, just working my way up the ladder. It's been quite a journey. Cam had hip surgery back in the day, and I had hip surgery my first year here too. I banged up, went up for a dunk, broke my wrist, and was actually kind of not hiding the hip, but just couldn't play through it. So decided to knock both of those surgeries out. And fortunately, just found an organization that values what I do and bring to the table. And it's been a great partnership for me. They stuck with me through the injuries and have allowed me to work my way up.
Do you feel like lacrosse it's more probably applicable to football or hockey or something like that, and then you play through a lot more. Did you feel like when you got back? I mean, obviously, NBA basketball players play through a lot of injuries too. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone's hurt by this time of year, but it's not necessarily as much of the culture. Did you feel like, in terms of even just kind of a body leveling standpoint, like you just had to change some of your habits or anything like that, just from a pure like I need to withstand the sort of rigors of the season?
Yeah, I definitely needed to change my body. You lift a lot more in lacrosse. I just played at a heavier weight in lacrosse because I love the physicality. So I honestly, I put on a little bit of weight at Northwestern too. Just playing as a little bit more of a bigger guard, and realized I just needed to transform my body to be able to cover some of these quicker, smaller, faster guys at this level. So definitely a big transformation for me there athletically. But I wouldn't say, I spent a couple years in the G League, and the G League is nowhere near the NBA. You play 50 games, but 50 to 82 is a big number in terms of recovery in between games, travel, et cetera. So I think this is kind of the first year that I've really dealt with the rigors of an 82 game schedule, travel. And, like you said, starting on a two-way, I think people think that the two-way kind of has it easier, just chilling. You're not playing during game, but ultimately that means you're getting there at 2:00 for a 7:00 game to get your work in, get your extra workout, and then you're doing all the team stuff as well. So the two ways have it. I think Dante's talked about it too on a podcast. I think I've heard him share, but if you're low man on the totem pole, your time that you're putting in and the work you're putting in is, I wouldn't say double, but it's a lot. So my body's definitely gotten used to that over the last couple of years, but it's been a journey.
Did you have a first crazy Steph moment or a favorite crazy Steph moment? Just anyone who's played with him has at least 3 or 4, but I'm curious your perspective once you got over there.
I think you just become a little bit numb to the shooting, right? Like I think you just kind of expect the ball to go in. I think that's the craziest part for me. Like just watching him work out, I would say is probably the most eye-opening. JJ was a movement shooter, so I'm sure he moved quite a bit during his shooting drills. But Steph works out the way he plays. So he's the kind of guy who's literally the way he's shooting in games is how he's shooting in practice. Like he'll start on one side of the court, sprint to the other side, get one shot. I don't know too many NBA guys that are doing like full court shooting drills on a daily basis. A lot of guys are doing spot or just, a couple movement shots with the looks they get in games. But it's the way that he's consistently just barely touching the rim, running full court time and time again. That's probably the most impressive.
Can you speak to the physical condition he's in? Because I feel like that's a thing that he also doesn't get enough credit for.
Yeah, just the ability to run nonstop. And still be as precise as he is as a shooter. I mean, you watch him play. We have so many counters for the way teams play him because he gets thrown with one. He gets held more than anybody in the NBA. He doesn't get enough calls. He's probably got to be a little better about selling it because they don't give him enough calls the way he gets held. But he gets top locked every game. You name it, he gets picked up full court. They'll just hit him in the half court double, and the dude, his endurance is off the hook. To be able to deal with all that and still be a 44% 3-point shooter or whatever his numbers are, it's just absurd.
This has become a little bit of a cliche question at this point, Pat, but with your journey, did you have a welcome to the NBA moment? Did you have one after all of this where and it could be positive too. It doesn't have to be somebody like dunking on you. It could just be a moment where you're like, I'm here.
No, I wouldn't say there's one in particular, to be honest with you. But I'm also one, I don't really, like I think you've seen us talk enough shit now. Like we don't really care about who we're facing,
Yeah.
That's
why it works. That's why you're here.
So like, I don't look at people like that. Like I'll tell you all about Steph and how much I admire his work ethic and who he is as a person. But like when we step on the court, he has flaws, right? Like we all have flaws. So like, that's how we're wired, So yeah, I don't think there's a welcome to the NBA moment because I just don't view other human beings like that. But I definitely have, love and appreciation and admiration for the work that goes into it from a lot of these guys.
Cam, do you have a favorite of his dunks?
At dunks?
Yeah.
I think there was one maybe from college. As far as in the NBA, I would say maybe the first one wasn't your first bucket a dunk. I mean, that was pretty cool to have happen. It was always kind of funny, like when we grew up playing pickup. Nobody really thought he could jump, and like I knew him obviously, and knew what he's capable of. And like sometimes you get a fast break and throw it down on somebody, and they go like guys playing in the game like, oh, you had that? Like I didn't know you could jump like that. I'm like, yeah. I mean, it was nothing new for me, but I think he catches people off guard, with his athleticism.
We used to have, along those lines, funny enough, we used to have trouble getting picked up in games. You can imagine we walk in, we don't exactly light up the room when we first walk in. And I think any guy that looks like us can relate in some capacity. It used to be tough to get picked up in that first pickup game. Guys would be like, you walk in, hey, you got 5? Yeah, we got 5. And then you see him over there trying to pick somebody else up. So I used to dunk when I walked in the gym just to try to get picked up. And then Cam's 4 years younger, so he always had trouble getting picked up. So I'd dunk.
And I can't jump.
They're like, oh, we got him. And I'd be like, yeah, well, you got to take my brother too. So that was how we got on the court for a while.
Do you guys remember Uncle Drew?
Yeah.
This is like, you like show up to the park and no one picks you and then you just kill everyone.
That's it.
It's a real thing for sure.
100%. You got to see somebody play before, and I get it. Like there's a perception. We walk in and we're like, we got our backpacks and we don't look the part. So
it is.
Yeah, you got 5. Yeah, we got 5.
We had a time. He'll definitely remember this. You will, Pat. But we were sitting like it was one of those days where everybody. I mean, we probably have 30 people in the gym and like one court. So you're just trying to hop on a team and you have to keep winning to stay on. And we didn't get picked up for probably like 2 hours. And by that time we had to leave the gym. And Pat ended up like throwing down a dunk in that game. I don't even think I got on in that. I had to watch the whole time because I was super young. But he ended up dunking. And like the team went crazy. Like, damn, this dude can play. And it was like, yeah, well, now we got to leave. We played one game in 2 hours because nobody would pick him up. And, there are a lot of those stories, but pretty funny.
I like the idea of you guys just not pushing it at all. Like not like, obviously you're not going to be like, do you know who I am? But like not even making any effort to like show off on like a side court or anything like that. Just be like, you're going to find out when you find out.
It honestly, I think we did that for a little while and then we're like, all right, this is just getting ridiculous. We got to get in there. So I would on the side court or something.
Like when the game stops, you got to go like start shooting and show that you can shoot, or in between games, you're like, dude, I promise, like we can play. Like we're just let us on the court, please.
Well, Cam, what was your biggest adjustment I would say as a shooter, but just sort of as like a scorer, this year so far? And we were talking before just about this team. It's a very stacked team. There's a lot of talent on it, but you're just adjustment to the league overall in terms of, figuring out the pace from the sort of highest level of college.
Yeah. I mean, there are two things. I think it's the balance of obviously a new role. You come from college and, you have the ball much more. You're asked to play a different role, scoring a lot more, making a lot more plays. And depending on certain lineups that you're with in the NBA, that's really not your role. It's doing the little things. Playing good defense, knocking down open shots when you get them. You're not in as many actions as you are in college. So just trying to find what the team needs from me when I do get in, and with different lineups, how I can contribute to winning, because that's all I care about. And then secondly, I would say just the NBA game is definitely different from college, being, a lot more pick and roll. I think the spacing is a huge difference. A 1.5 foot difference in that 3-point line, which just makes for longer closeouts. And honestly, I think it makes it easier to play offense in the NBA versus college, which is a lot more set driven and, definitely a slower pace game, I would say.
It's funny. I'm actually curious your perspective on this, Pat, too, because we've had a bunch of guys who've talked about, not less with college and more with in Europe, how it's easier to score in the NBA than in Europe. I'm not sure if anyone has said it in college yet, but do you Do you see any of that as well, having sort of played at all levels?
Yeah, it definitely a lot more space on the floor, and I think also that just the gravity of like the caliber of players around you, right? So, as Cam mentioned, when you're on the floor with certain guys, your role might be a little bit less, but that also means that the guy that is in that corner, they're probably not helping off as much, right? So if I'm on the floor with Steph, I'm on the floor with guys that can put the ball in the hoop. It means probably one guy is going to have to cover me, or it's going to be a pick and roll, and there's probably going to be a lot less help. So yeah, definitely easier to score at the NBA level. And then, like Cam said, college, much like Europe, is very set driven. Europe, you'll see a little bit more lenience in terms of like if you have a guy, they'll play through him, but still very more of a college style ball over there, and very set driven. So NBA is really pretty individual based for the most part, and try to pick apart matchups and a lot of isolation ball too.
Cam, do you agree with Ja's assessment that you're a psycho?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Says it's with the dark. He's sitting in the dark.
There's definitely some truth to that.
How long do you think you've been that way?
I mean, my whole life, honestly. Like, I would say, I think we just have a different competitive fire to us. I think it maybe gets recognized the more you move on in your basketball career. But I don't know, man. Like, losing sucks. It's one of the worst things in the world, and I don't know. It's not a game. Like, basketball is fun, but like it does control a lot in your life, and I guess your happiness. So I take it very seriously, and I think there's definitely some truth to that.
It was funny. I watched that clip when you guys were playing the Suns of you and Dez and Katie, and it's like I've known Dez for a long time. He's also a psycho. And like I have no idea the context of it or anything like that. And it's just basketball, it's like people just talk shit. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But like my immediate thought was like, you're on the right team because you're like with these guys who are all kind of like you in their own way, even though you're all from different parts of the, country and the world in a certain extent. And so it's like, is that something that you felt, just the second you got down there, that like, a lot of them are wired the way you're describing, and a lot of them are wired like that. And a lot of them have sort of these underdog stories, and that's why they are where they are.
For sure. And I think that's why we have a very close-knit group. I think a lot of our team is blue-collar guys in a blue-collar organization, being in Memphis, who's obviously not going to get a lot of free agents, in the offseason. We're going to have to build from the ground up and attract the guys who play with an edge and play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think we have a lot of those guys, and Dez and Ja are two of my favorites for sure. I know they'll have my back. I'll have their back no matter what, but I think we just all play with that edge and, want to prove people wrong.
Have you seen or played with an athlete like Ja before?
No, I mean, like, for his size, his explosiveness is another level. Like, especially when he gets out in transition, it's like between the speed and explosiveness, it's like, he can do a lot of things that a lot of people can't do.
Pat, what's been your thought process? What's your thought on the Jimmy edition so far? Dante and I were talking about it the other day, and we just obviously you guys have been great, but just like hit the intellect that he brings to the locker room, sort of like, physical skills aside, in terms of that addition, what have you seen?
Yeah, I think he's just one of those guys who's like ultra composed at all times, right? So if you watch enough Warriors basketball, especially throughout that middle part of the year for us, we just had a tendency to shoot ourselves in the foot and go on these runs where we turn the ball over and kind of gift the other team the win. We were really searching for any sort of lineup, any sort of individual to kind of calm us down and just keep us under control throughout those times. And I don't know if there's a better player in the league for that, just in terms of a guy that you can throw the ball, get everybody organized, composed, under control. He's never sped up. And quite frankly, he hasn't even really scored the basketball yet. So I think that's what a lot of us are looking forward to the most. Right now, he's gelling, trying to fit in. And obviously, you're going to defer to a guy like Steph, who's done it time and time again on the offensive end. But I think there's another level to Jimmy in terms of his composure, and you mentioned his IQ. I think one, it's been great defensively for us to have somebody that you can lean on that way. I think it's also allowed Draymond to be Draymond, such a high IQ guy and elite on the ball. But I think Draymond just as elite off the ball, in terms of just reading offenses and player tendencies and being a help man. So to have Jimmy behind him and then him behind Jimmy, I think that 1-2 punch has been deadly.
You mentioned the sort of composure. I mean, I saw it a lot in Philly, but he's been doing this since the Chicago days. It'll be interesting if you come back on. Hopefully you guys go a long way in the playoffs. But like seeing it in the playoffs, seeing it as the playoffs keep going on, it's always just he's someone who's seen everything. So there's nothing that's going to happen that's going to sort of like knock him off in any way.
Yeah, I agree. And quite frankly, I don't think he's ever had a team around him like the team that we have. And that's not a knock to Miami, but you just look at the load that he had to carry with that group and to get them where he got them multiple times while doing what he did was just incredible. So yeah. I think you just see it I think he found his joy, is the way we're putting it. He found his joy again. So playing with a guy like Steph will just open the court up for him come playoff time. Like I said, he hasn't even really scored the ball at an elite level yet. And I think we've all seen him do that at a really high level in the playoffs before. So excited to see that motor kick in. Obviously right now, feeling things out, picking his spots. We're getting used to him. He's getting used to us. But there's another level there.
I was meaning to ask both of you guys this. Sort of predating when both of you got to your teams, there has been like a Grizz Warriors rivalry, so to speak, that's manifested itself in different ways. When you guys realized you were both sort of here, did you have a conversation about that?
Just the rivalry between the two teams, you mean?
Yeah, it's like there was the stuff with Brooks and Draymond. I mean, I guess Dre, like I love Dre. Like we've done a lot of stuff with him on this show. I guess he has rivalries with a lot of people.
I was going to say, I think part of it has to do with the fact that Golden State just won so much beforehand, and so everybody's going to target. Like we get everybody's best shot, and obviously Draymond is just like us. He loves to talk a little shit. So, if you got a guy on the other team that's not going to back down, then it's probably going to turn into somewhat of a quote unquote rivalry. But I think Dre would probably beg to differ. I think he believes the rivalry is when both sides have won. That's what I heard him say.
It's a one-sided rivalry. It is just funny that you guys both ended up on these two kind of psycho teams, because that's not every team in the league is like this. Like this is maybe that's why you're here, but it's like there's a lot of teams where it's kind of like, we're not going to name names or anything like that, but there's a lot of teams where it's like it's the playoff start and everyone's in Mexico. And this is like, these are two teams.
Names, dude.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of teams that passed on us. We don't mind naming names. We're like 50 something teams that passed on Cam.
I know. It's actually, I don't understand that the you guys have had these different journeys, and I don't, after seeing what Cam did last year, I don't understand that at all. I didn't even ask you about draft night, but like that to me feels like it's one thing for you to only get one offer in high school. It's another thing for that to happen, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's just where the league's at too, man. Like you start to see all these teams are just taking chances on length and athleticism and youth, and they just hope they knock it out of the park once out of every 5 to 6 picks. You see all these guys ending up out of the league, but then you question, the teams that have won it consistently year in and year out, you look at the rosters that they have, they value a lot of the same things, right? The Warriors on their run just kept reloading with high IQ guys time and time again. Denver, when they won at the highest level, they had the Bruce Browns, they had the guys that KCP, the guys that fill roles and are high IQ guys that could play different roles for you. And so I'm amazed that there's a handful of teams that keep dipping back into the youth and potential phase time and time again. You see the guys that last a long time in this league, they're here because of IQ. Chris Paul's not playing because he's a freak athlete at his age, right? Like, so, there are guys that have elite skill sets. Steph could play forever because of the way he shoots the ball. But the guys that last time and time again are the guys that have IQ. So I'm amazed that the draft, especially second round, these guys are going for the same thing time and time again. It's kind of embarrassing where some of these organizations are at.
Well, they're biased against older players, which keeps blowing up in their face.
Yeah, but what is older at this point, dude? Like guys are playing till 35 to 38 years old.
This
so
is
a
why it
guy
makes no sense. Yeah.
24, like his IQ is his IQ. If he has the IQ of a donkey, you're not going to change his game. Like it is what it is. And that part drives me nuts because, these guys have egos in front offices and think they're going to just drastically change a player's IQ. A guy's been playing like that for 20 something years. If he doesn't see it, he doesn't see it. So he might be able to be like a 3-and-D shooter at some point, like maybe you can simplify the game, but ultimately it's a game of reads. We were talking about Europe and college. Those are very set oriented. So you can kind of hide some IQ stuff there. You get to this level, if you just don't know how to read and process the game at a high level and in real time, it's going to be a really tough journey for you. So, yeah, just surprised that a handful of teams passed on Cam, and I'm sure they'll come knocking come contract time.
Well, there's that, and I think we did an ep in January with Austin Reeves, and his journey is different than you guys, but it's also similar in certain ways. And he talked about this with his experience of just like, when I mean older, I mean just like they see the multiple schools, they see the whatever it is, 21 to 23, and all of a sudden it's like, you're so right though. It's like guys are playing till they're 35, 36. You're like, what difference does that make?
What 22 versus 25? You're going to change the guy's IQ and his entire game in the span of 3 years. He showed you who he is as a player. So yeah.
I think a lot of it is like their narratives on certain players. Like I go back, you mentioned Austin, like watching him in college. Like, how does somebody like that fall through both rounds? You know what I mean? Like, if you actually watch the game and watch his skill level and his IQ, it's a no-brainer as to why you would draft him. But like, it's pretty shocking to see certain guys drop in the draft or go undrafted, end up having great careers like they do.
I also think another guy that's here is a little different, but it's not that different. And this JJ would always talk about this with just winning culture, and this is the thing. And Pat, you've seen this now in multiple sports, not just in basketball, but like it's not a surprise the Nova guys are doing what they're doing. Like Jalen Brunson dropped. Jalen Brunson has been the best player Jalen Brunson was the best player in the country in high school. Then he goes to Nova and he's an all-world player at Nova. Every year he's there, and he still goes in the second round because you can say whatever, maybe size, blah blah blah, anything like this. It's like it's to what you're saying, Pat. They're overthinking it. We're just overthinking it.
And I think that's the other thing. Like you get a Jimmy in the room for us, right? Like people were, is Jimmy going to fit? Like they're already not shooting the ball great. There's going to be a lack of spacing with him and Draymond on the floor. Yeah, you get a room full of high IQ guys, and they just figure out how to win. Like Jimmy's a winner. So, I'll have a different approach when I hang up the shoes and maybe go that route. But we believe in IQ and competitiveness and having an edge in this household for sure.
Before we wrap, I have a final question for you guys. Before we wrap, I wanted to bring up briefly your guys' foundation. I was talking to Zach about it before. Spencer Brothers Foundation. Can you give a little background just on the kind of stuff you guys have been working on and where people can find out more info?
Yeah, we appreciate you plugging that in here, man. This is big time. It's our first year, so we are fired up. We're from Maryland, right outside of Annapolis, Maryland, and we are lucky enough to have two parents who valued the Naval Academy being really close to our home. So we have a lot of military family members and really close friends that have served, and fortunate enough that our parents decided to sponsor midshipmen at a really young age. And they've been a huge part of our life ever since we were kids. So we were kind of like their home away from home. They could pop over, grab a burger, grab steaks, and kick their feet up and relax. And it's something that's really important to us. So obviously we got to the NBA level and made a couple bucks, and we wanted to make sure we put that money towards a really good cause. So we started Spencer Brothers Foundation, just launched within the last year, and we're partnering with a handful of foundations to really give back and have an impact. So it's there to check out. We're having our inaugural event. We're going to have a poker night and a golf outing back to back, and we're fired up, man. I don't want to speak too much on it. Cam can chime in here too, but really excited. You should check it out at SpencerBrothersFoundation.org.
Yeah, I mean, like Pat said, we were very fortunate to grow up near the Naval Academy. We played a lot of pickup basketball there growing up. We've had our high school coach was in the Marines. Our grandpa was in the Army. Like, we've always been around the military. And I think being around them just taught us a lot about, discipline, mental toughness, kind of making, a lot of sacrifices to go after your passion or what you want to do. So, yeah, our family sponsored midshipmen. There's a program at the Naval Academy where, you can pretty much be a home away from home for those midshipmen on campus. So they come over for weekends. We grill out with them, just chop it up and, kind of give them a place to get away from the Naval Academy because their schedules are so grueling. So I think for young kids that we were having those role models for us really, really taught us a lot about having good values. And, we definitely taken that with us in our lives and just want to show how appreciative we are of them for being in our lives and their sacrifices that they've made.
That's awesome and really well said. I'm curious with a lot of guys this question, but I think with your guys' specific, unique journeys to get where you are, for people who are watching or listening or whatever, following along with this episode, your sort of advice for perseverance. If you guys have had like something that was either told to you or that you've sort of figured out on your own that you feel like is a thing that is kind of to the thing you were talking about earlier, Pat, that drive. Like, what has led to that? Is there a piece of advice that someone's given you that's sort of cut through?
I would say it's a 50-50 thing. For me, I'm a believer that who you are is, and that competitive edge is a bit innate. So I think we're just wired. That's how we're wired competitively, right? Like, I don't think everybody's going to have that burning passion inside. But I think the other thing that we grew up with our family is, and my dad stole it from our grandfather. He just said, you try, I'll try. And so we've had the good fortune of having the incredible support from our parents and grandparents and anybody who's in our family that wants to see us do well. The phrase "you try, I'll try" was basically, it means if you have a passion for something and you want to pursue it, then I'll do everything that I can in my power to help you get to the next level and help you achieve that goal. And our parents did that and beyond for us. So thankful beyond thankful to have the support system that we have. I would say that the advice on that is, if you're not fortunate enough to have that, surround yourself with people that value the same things that you do. Find people that are passionate about what they do. Find people that love to wake up every day and enjoy life, and are hungry to be the best version of themselves. Those people are very easy to bring along with you. And we're fortunate that just happens to be within our family.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say, I think life's all about how you respond to adversity. That's pretty much, you're going to face adversity throughout your entire life. I think who you are as a person is how you respond from those moments. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Nobody cares, honestly. Everybody has problems. Everybody's, failed or been cut before, and, everybody has things that they're going through. So I would say just, don't feel sorry for yourself and work harder. Life's adversity is gonna come. You're gonna have good times and bad times. I think how you respond to those situations is everything about life.
Well said, both of you. Pat Spencer, Cam Spencer, thank you guys for taking the time, for joining us. You have to come back post playoffs. All right, guys. We'll do the next one in person.
I appreciate it, Tom.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us on, brother.